Dragon Ball Super Episode 75 of the Funimation English dub has several dub changes, and before we get into Episode 76, I just wanted to list a few of the dub changes in Episode 75. The Tournament of Power is close to being here, so let's just get right into it. The episode title is changed very slightly. The Japanese title is Goku and Kuririn back to the old training grounds, and then the English title is Goku and Krillin, not Kuririn, back to the old familiar training ground. Now, I am not sure why they just didn't go with the Japanese title and just stuck with it. You know, obviously changing to Krillin, but, you know, just changing it. I don't know why they added the back to the old familiar training ground. It's just another word. It doesn't really fit. So, yeah, the Japanese title, I think that works fine. The English title, I don't know why they used the word familiar, and then they removed the S in grounds. So, just training ground. Anyway, the first actual dub change, you know, barring the episode titles, is Chi-Chi describing Goku's training and farming. So Goku is plowing the fields, but he's also training, you know, destroying stuff. So yeah, like he's also firing ki blasts and stuff. So it's, you know, it's knocking out two birds with one stone. And in the Japanese, she's like, look, Gohan, Goku-san's constantly talking about training, so I had him plow his fields that way. The English dub, she says, your father's so funny, he'll do whatever it takes to keep up his daily training, and in this case, it's plowing the fields by hand. So, in the English dub, they don't necessarily say that Chi-Chi is behind him plowing the fields. They just say that, you know, he'll do whatever it takes to keep up with his training, so he's plowing the fields that way, by hand, basically. And in the Japanese, you know, she's like, Goku-san's constantly talking about training, so it seems like in the Japanese, it's more like her sort of saying, you should just plow the fields, you know, that's how you're going to get your training. But in the English, it doesn't really say that. But then, a few moments later, Gohan asks if something is up, you know, with Vegeta and Bulma, because Vegeta just stared at, Goku when he wanted to train. So, Vegeta wouldn't really pass up training, so obviously something happened with Vegeta and Bulma maybe, and in the Japanese, Gohan says, did something happen with Bulma-san? And then Chi-Chi replies in the Japanese, and she goes, I bet they had an argument. So in the English, it's pretty different. I mean, the same sort of tone is there, but it's just different exchanges. In the English, Gohan says, maybe he and Bulma are fighting or something. So Gohan just directly says in the English dub, maybe they are fighting, and in the Japanese he is like, maybe something did happen. Then Chi-Chi is defending the arguments, you know, in the English by saying couples fight, it's no big deal, and in the Japanese, she says, I bet they had an argument. So Chi-Chi is more investigating in the Japanese dub, and in the English, she's like defending the arguments. It seems like the roles have been reversed, with Gohan sort of investigating, you know, maybe they are fighting. And in the Japanese, Chi-Chi is like, I bet they had an argument. So it seems like the roles are reversed, saying like, oh, I wonder if they had an argument. Seems like the character roles are reversed. Again, not a huge deal, but, you know, it is something worth noting. And then Gohan asks Goten to spar with Goku, and in the Japanese, Gohan says, maybe you, maybe you should spar, and then Chi-Chi gets, you know, furious. She has that sort of Kaioken-like aura going, and it's funny. It's just like a red aura. She gets super pissed. You can see it in her facial expression. And then, in the Japanese, Gohan switches to say, maybe you shouldn't do that either, instead of, you know, maybe, you know, you should, you know, spar with Goku, because Chi-Chi gets pissed, so he just changes the line real quick, and he goes, shouldn't do that either. And in the English, Gohan says, why don't you go and do it, and then ... Chi-Chi gets mad, and then instead of talking to Goten now, Gohan talks to Chi-Chi, and he says, I guess you want him to go study, which I like that line, and Chi-Chi obviously goes, of course I do, in the English, and, I like that. In the English dub, I do like that line, even though it is a bit liberal, it is a good line, you know, I guess I want him to go study, I kind of like that line a bit better, it's just a little more clever. And, then it cuts to Krillin on a bank, robbery job. So basically the robbers are fleeing away in their car, and Krillin stops the robber's car, and in the Japanese, Krillin just says stop. It's pretty cool, it's a nice little action scene. But in the English dub, he says freeze, and it's just, he basically just stops him dead in their tracks. I kind of like the English dub a bit better. It's just a bit more badass, like saying freeze, like I don't know, I like it. And Sonny Strait delivers a fantastic performance in this episode. And then Krillin explains to his police officer, co-workers, how he could up to the robbers, and in the Japanese he says, well, there's a trick to it, don't try it. I believe he's referring to him basically teleporting and getting in front of the vehicle, or speeding up and, being in front of a vehicle, crashing into the robber's car. And in the English, he sort of brushes it off and says, well, it's not that complicated, you just don't use the brakes. So there's a bit of a switch up in terms of the line. I do like the Japanese line a tad more, if I'm being honest. Well, there's a trick to it, just don't try it. Don't try getting in front of his car. It's suicide. I can do it, but just don't do it, police officers. The next dub change comes in when the police reacts to Krillin being okay from a gunshot. So the robbers go and shoot Krillin, and he has a wound. He has blood coming out and he has a wound, but the police reacts to Krillin being okay, like he's like, fine, I'm okay. And then in the Japanese, he's like, the police are like, thank goodness, don't do anything rash. But the English dub switches it up and they say, thank heavens, you're a hero. So the Japanese, they're kind of scolding him a tad more. Not obviously too much, don't do anything rash is not, huge scolding, but they scold him a bit more. But in the English dub, they outright praise Krillin for helping the police officers out, because I was going to hit one of the police officers, Krillin, knocked out of the way, knocked him out of the way and took the bullet, but yeah, I kind of like the English dub and the Japanese. Again, there's a bit of a difference, but it's not a huge deal. It's not something to, destroy the episode. It's, it's no hope of the universe in the old Funimation Dragon Ball Z dub. And then Goku steps in, crushes the robber's guns and takes them out, and then Goku's reaction to getting thanked by the police is a bit different. In the Japanese, Goku's like, sure, I guess, whatever, like he's hesitant, he's kind of confused on why they are thanking him, like, sure, okay, whatever, I'm here to talk to Krillin. And in the English dub, he just straight out says, no problem, like, in the Japanese there's, a bit more hesitance, which is kind of weird. Like, I'm not sure why they didn't stick with the hesitance in the English dub, but it's not a huge deal. I do like the Japanese version a bit more because he's like, sure, like, I'm here to talk to my friend, like, I don't care, like, sure, I helped you, but I'm here to talk to Krillin. But in the English dub, he's like, no problem, which, I don't know, it's kind of strange that they couldn't, fit with the Japanese there, but oh well. Krillin explains why he fought Frieza's army. So Goku, he's like, come on Krillin, why don't you train with us? And then Krillin explains, why he has given up martial arts and stuff. And Goku's like, well, didn't you face Frieza's army? Like, didn't you fight Frieza's army with, all of the Z fighters and stuff? And in the Japanese, his excuse is that's because everyone was there, which is true. And in the English, it's changed up a bit, it's more of heroic. It's more heroic in the English dub, how he says that's because the whole world was at stake, because, the whole world was at stake, Frieza was revived. So there's a bit of a difference there. Japanese, he's not as heroic because he just says, that's because everyone was fighting Frieza, so I guess I had to kind of join in. But the English dub, he's like, that's because the whole world, was at stake. I need to hop in and do stuff. That's why I fought Frieza's army, but I am not a martial artist anymore. So a bit of a difference there. Then 18 roasts Krillin. Now this is very similar, but I just wanted to talk about it anyway. Like, it's not a bad dub change, or it's actually a really good dub change. Japanese, he says, look at you, 18 roasts Krillin and makes him, want to train, makes him sort of wanting to train and eager to train more to become stronger. So the Japanese, she says, look at you, the man I fell in love with wasn't such a spineless weakling. Now the English dub, it's basically like this line reminded me of Dragon Ball Z Kai, because Dragon Ball Z Kai, it spiced up the lines, but it spiced them up extremely well and punched it up. This reminds me of it. As the English dub says, "What happened to you? The timid Krillin licking his wounds on the sofa is not the brave martial artist I fell in love with." That is what 18 says to Krillin to get him to train. So basically she's quote-unquote roasting Krillin. Now, the English dub just has a way better line, in my opinion. Like, the timid Krillin licking his... Like, that's just... she just roasted him. That's just great. I don't know. I like the English. It reminded me of Kai dialogue. Anyway, so Roshi talks about the Paradise Plant when they go to Master Roshi, Goku and Krillin. They eventually agree to train with with each other. Then they go into Master Roshi's place, Kame House. Then Roshi talks about the Paradise Plant that they are supposed to get for an errand for Master Roshi in order to, quote-unquote, get stronger. So, yeah, Roshi talks about the Paradise Plant, and in the Japanese, they say it's called a Paradise Plant, and in the English, he says they call it the Paradise Herb. Now, I wouldn't go, I wouldn't mention this, but the fact that they say Paradise Plant in the Japanese and English dub, they say Paradise Herb, again, it's not a huge difference whatsoever. I just wanted to bring it up. And the final dub change I wanted to actually bring up, the final sort of major-ish dub change, even though these dub changes aren't even that major, to be honest, because the Dragon Ball Super English dub is a good dub and doesn't have too many dub changes that are kind of like off-putting or just kind of awkward or just, interesting to talk about. So anyway, Goku mispronounces Barba's name, and in the Japanese, he says Fortune Smeller Barber. So yeah, Fortune Smeller Barber, just a little pun there. The English dub, he is like, "Oh, you're the fortune seller." So there is Fortune Smeller Barber, and then there is in the English the Fortune Seller. So two different jokes, very similar puns though. It's both an insulting pun on the on Barba's name, but the English dub less so I don't know why she is so uptight about it, but whatever. That is most of the dub changes in the Dragon Ball Super Episode 75 English dub on Toonami. So overall, the episode was quite good. I really did like Sunny Strait and Sean Chenwoo's performance as Goku and Krillin. I really did like their dynamic, even though they record their lines separately. This is not like the Japanese dub of Dragon Ball Super or Dragon Ball in general, the Dragon Ball franchise, or anime in general, how most of the time they, in Japan, they record all at the same time with all of the characters, like as an ensemble cast. In this case, in the dub's case, they just record one by one, but the fact that they can still bring the same chemistry and feel like, they are just talking like, one another is just impressive, and that's just credit to Sunny Strait and Sean Chenwoo. And the lines I like, especially 18 roasting Krillin, that is just a just fantastic line. It's just a fire line. Reminds me of Dragon Ball Z Kai. It's punched up, but it's clever and it's well written. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Please make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.